Mr. Warachai Pichanjit, Vice Chairman of Bangkok Post, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Sawadee krap. First of all, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to the Bangkok Post Group for inviting me to participate in this timely conference. First of all, I'd just like to begin with a question. Has anyone online at this moment already had mango and sticky rice this season? If your answer is no, then you're certainly out of trend. And thanks to our lovely Millie, who marked the occasion of using the soft power to promote our good food and nice culture by eating our traditional Thai dessert of mango and sticky rice on stage at Coachella Festival in California last week. Could you believe that orders for mango and sticky rice through one of our popular food delivery applications have more than tripled within 24 hours after Millie's performance? Not only mango and sticky rice, but Thailand is also world famous for our delicious culinary offering, from starters to desserts and everything in between, which cooked from fresh local raw materials, including rice, vegetables, fruits, seafood, various kinds of meat and spices. That's why we have long been called the kitchen of the world. Such recognition stems from the combination of having abundant natural resources and appropriate climate for a year-round growing season. Now, you may all know that we are one of the largest net food exporters in the world, with a record value of about 1.1 trillion baht in 2021. We're also one of the world's top 10 producers of many important agricultural products, including rice, cassava, sugarcane, palm oil, coconut, pineapple, natural rubber, etc. And roughly 40 to 50% of the country is used for agricultural purposes. And moreover, the agricultural sector is still currently crucial for Thailand, which employs around 33% of Thailand's workforce and also contributing to about 8 to 12% of the country's GDP. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been recognized for quite some time now that food is at the heart of many of the world's environment, social and economic challenges. Global food systems have made remarkable achievements by contributing to the significant reduction in global undernourishment. In fact, the future of food concept began nearly 15 years ago when genetically modified foods, or known as GMOs, were introduced into the United States. And now in 2022, the question of what and how will we be eating in the future is continuously evolving, because over 800 million people around the world are still undernourished, and an even greater number is expected to rise sharply due to insecure global food system. Recently, the global food system has unfortunately been threatened by the COVID-19, the war in Ukraine, and the triple planetary crises. This includes the climate change, biodiversity loss and pollution, especially chemical and plastic pollutions. The global food systems are not only dependent upon natural resources, but are also responsible for the vast majority of global land and water usage, as well as being one of the main producers of greenhouse gas emissions, which account for about 10 to 12% of the global share. But actually, substantial amounts of food are currently produced but not eaten by humans, resulting in undesirable impacts on the environment, social and economic, of course. According to the latest available data from Champion 12.3, about 8% of all food produced in the world is lost on the farm, 14% is lost between farm gate and retail sector, and 17% is wasted in the retail, food service providers, and in households. The UNEP's Food Waste Index report also found that household food services and retail waste about 931 million tons of food in 2019 alone, which is around 17% of all food available for human consumption. Amazingly, do you know that average household food waste is about 74 kilograms per person per year? Now, that's more than the body weight of a person. And over the past 2 years, the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated food loss and waste by continually disrupting human food supply chain. The 2021 annual progress report on SDG target 12.3, food loss and waste, prepared by Champion 12.3, indicated that the global amount of food that is lost or wasted from the farm to fork is higher than previously calculated. The same report also provided the information that reducing food loss and waste by half would avoid about 1.5 gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalent emission per year by 2050. Now, in light of these impacts, reducing food loss and waste can generate multiple benefits. It can help feed more people, of course, increase saving for farmers, businesses, and households, and reduce pressure on the environment. Ladies and gentlemen, so what is the future of food? I am confident that by now you're all concerned about the global food crisis due to unimaginable situation which could create a whiplash effect in the food supply chain. The question at the top of our mind is whether Thai food system will be severely affected by the aforementioned threats. My answer is definitely a big yes. We shall be affected directly and indirectly from such threats in terms of higher prices of feed grains, fertilizers, and fuels, as well as climate change, as we are so vulnerable. However, as the kitchen of the world, which is enshrined with abundance of natural resources and appropriate climate, Thailand continues to be in the spotlight. I'm confident of that. Now, since we are currently in the UN Decade of Action in transforming food systems towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, with the concept of leaving no one behind, the UN Food Systems Summit was held during the UN General Assembly in New York last year, even before the war in Ukraine. Now, the summit resonated the critical need for a complete overhaul of the global food system in order to properly address the global food crisis. The commitment from leaders of more than 100 UN member states, including Thailand, has been voiced to the whole world. Our Prime Minister, General Prayut Chan-o-cha, addressed at the summit that Thailand aligns ourselves with the UN framework for food system transformation through the bio-circular green economy model, or BCG model, which has its root in sufficiency economy philosophy initiated by His Majesty King Rama IX the Great. The model, which focuses on food security and sustainability of nature and the environment, will be the driving engine to safeguard our food system, which will eventually contribute to the global food system. The Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment may not be the core agency responsible for the food system, but we are taking care of the fundamental factors for securing the food system, especially on biodiversity, land, and climate. Now, therefore, we've been working closely with other agencies, particularly the Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives, in assuring the food security of our country. We've been working on investing and laying a solid foundation for BCG model for a while now. The National Biobank to conserve and ensure efficiently utilization of biodiversity resources to secure our future food has been established. A draft of Thailand's first Biodiversity Act is also in the process of the cabinet consideration. The bill will enhance Thailand's capacity to turn our biodiversity resources into products with added value while ensuring the right of community to wisely use biodiversity resources as their food, medical herbs, etc., etc. And furthermore, relevant acts such as 2019 Forestry Act, 2019 Wildlife Conservation and Protection, and the 2019 National Parks Act have been enacted in order to reduce land usage change caused by expanding agricultural activity, while allowing the local people and communities in the area surrounding the reserved forest, national parks, either terrestrial or marine, to sustainably use land and biodiversity as their sources of food and basic needs for their livelihood. However, Thailand is one of the most vulnerable countries to the adverse impacts of the climate change. And even though we are only contributing less than 1% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, only around 16% of the country's carbon dioxide emissions stem from agricultural sector. However, rice farming and livestock accounted for more than 70% of the country's methane emissions. It is a matter of fact that our food system will be impacted by changing precipitation patterns, which cause extreme floods in some areas and more extensive drought periods in others, as occurred in my hometown, which is Suphanburi, last year. Of course, changes in average growing season conditions will put the agricultural sector at risk. Therefore, the National Climate Change Master Plan, which spanned from 2015 to 2050, has been formulated as the highest level of policy which focuses on the preparedness, both in adaptation and mitigation, as well as capacity building. The adaptation strategy in agriculture and food security is also highlighted. The National Adaptation Plan and our NDC, or the Nationally Determined Contribution, also identifies safeguarding of food security as a top priority, which emphasizes on creating resilience of agricultural sector with appropriate technology, innovation, and traditional knowledge. Such plans would help our farmers to adapt to the negative impacts of climate change, which will contribute to the stability of our food system. And in addition, the carbon credit system under the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement will encourage Thailand to reduce emissions overall. This will spill over to incentivize people in the food business to incorporate more greener solution. And furthermore, various laws have been enacted and implemented regarding water, air, and soil quality, as well as chemicals and waste management. Now, with the aforementioned measures, combined with the booming in agro-industry businesses, as well as a shift in the consumer interest towards sustainability, Thailand is well positioned as an investment destination. Ladies and gentlemen, investments are critically needed to improve the resilience of food system, not only to the COVID-19 or the war in Ukraine, but also the multitude of shocks from the triple planetary crisis, which have imposed significant effects to food and agricultural sector. The concept of invest in our planet as the theme of the Earth Day 2022 tremendously reflects that investment in the area of environment is a prerequisite for securing food system, and we have to invest, but not waste. The government has been working on investing in the food system transformation with a focus on knowledge and technology-based investment, which emphasizes on innovation and local wisdom. Our ministry, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, has also invested in several projects, not only in terms of budget, but also in the form of wisdom and cooperation through the public and private partnership. As a result, some of the exciting projects have already achieved significant results. And now allow me to share with you some of them. First and foremost, the Nong Phai groundwater project in Lao Kwan district, Kanchanaburi province, in which Their Majesty King Rama X and the Queen graciously presided over its opening ceremony on April the 3rd, earlier this month. The project will supply water to 37,600 households and 557,000 rai of non-irrigated farmland that produce high-value agricultural goods. The other groundwater exploring projects are conducted across the country in order to supply water to people for consumptions and agricultural purposes. And second, the Nan Sandbox, where the government recognizes people's right to robust livelihood sustained by environmentally and economically supportive farming. The project is an innovative public and private venture committed to ending deforestation while securing food system and sustaining the environment through spreading new agricultural knowledge and practices, while encouraging people to reforest parts of the land back to the national forest. And third, the very important one, which is the Rice Nama project under the Thai-German Corporation, which has reached out to more than 100,000 rice farming households in shifting from the conventional wet paddies to the low-emission farming practices by alternately apply wet and dry systems to the rice paddies, which will eventually cause the significant reduction in the methane emission. The project also provides valuable incentive schemes and financial support which empower the farmers to move towards the sustainable farming system that will eventually contribute to food security. And fourth, there are many pilot projects invested by the private sector, which will enable Thailand to remain in the spotlight. For example, the Envico Company Limited in Rayong province that invested about 2.5 billion baht in recycling food-grade plastic packagings that will contribute to the pathway of tackling plastic pollution while providing a better quality of food preservation. And another one is a PTTNR joint venture invested in the plant-based innovations, which will reduce methane emission and result in about 15 times less water utilization. The last but not least example is the insect farming, especially in the northeastern part of Thailand. How do you feel about consuming food or even snack bars made from insects? Of course, insect eating represents the future of food. In fact, it is already a common practice in majority part of Thailand. For food security purposes, insect farming is truly considered as the sustainable way to provide an ecologically viable food source to the world's population. Certain species of insects, typically crickets, grasshoppers, and mealworms, are becoming the talk of the town in the field of high-protein food products. Definitely not a yucky one. Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier, that food loss and waste is one of the major factors in intensifying the global food crisis. The same situation occurs in Thailand, of course. In 2021, it was estimated that food waste is at the rate of about 150 kilograms per capita per year. So yes, the burden of food waste and loss is heavy. Pretty much everyone listening here today has, I'm sure, wasted food in the last week. The 20-year strategic plan for pollution management calls for a clear strategy to reduce waste occurred across the entire food supply chain. The food waste management roadmap, with a target of about 50% food waste reduction by 2030, is therefore under formulating. Last week on Earth Day, our ministry, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, just signed an MOU with 30 companies and coffee shops to jointly promote a green cafe, aiming to reduce food waste and the amount of single-use plastics. I also invited restaurants, department stores, supermarkets, convenience stores across the country to engage in the campaign to reduce food waste through the donation program of leftover food to the vulnerable in need people or turn them into animal feeds. I do sincerely believe that everyone here could do more to reduce food waste in your organization or even starts at home. Now, ladies and gentlemen, may I conclude that even the overall global food system is jeopardized by many threats of our lifetime, but the future of food is still in our hands. I would say that business as usual is not an option. Major transformation in agricultural systems and natural resources management is seriously required to secure the food system. And I deeply believe that rejuvenated biodiversity, oil, soil, and water, as well as stable climate, is imperative for food security, both at the national and at the global levels. We just have to take good care of our nature, basically, and the rest nature will do for us. And in order to end my remark, I would like to reiterate a very important point, that eventually, in the end, the nature doesn't need the people. But on the other hand, people do need the nature. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ